It's a really long story, but in this video, I'm going to share with you really briefly what is the difference between a framework and CMS and when you should choose a framework over CMS and when you need to only rly on CMS. But before having this comparison, let me tell you a little bit about web development and the concepts we have in this area. Basically, when you go to a website or work with an application, there are mostly two layers. The first layer is basically the graphical layer that you interact with. It is also called the client side. We call it front-end side actually. There are different frameworks and languages to create front-ends. But basically they're mostly based on HTML, CSS and JavaScript for websites. And for the application, it actually depends on the mobile platform and the language you want to use. For example, for Android apps, the foundation is mostly based on Java programming. These days, around the main languages, there are all sorts of libraries and frameworks that could help you to do the development much faster and easier. Tools like jQuery or React.js for websites and React Native for mobile applications. Okay, the second layer is backend. You could say that the backend is the heart of a dynamic website on an application. You know, the backend is basically responsible for getting the user's request, doing something behind the scene, communicating with the database, and at the end, returns the data to the client. Okay, let's look at a really simple task here. For example, logging into a website. So first of all, you need to enter your username and password through the UI, actually the front-end side. And then the front-end side passes the username and password to the backend. Behind the scene, backend tries to communicate with the database to first check if the user exists, and if the user exists, then it tries to check the password to see if it's correct or not. And then the backend returns the user's data to the front-end side so you can see your profile information. Or if there is something wrong with your username or password, it just returns an error message. There are also a lot of frameworks for the backend side. It depends based on the language you choose. For instance, we have Laravel for PHP, Django for Python, and Express.js for Node.js. You can of course do the development without using any framework, just by using the raw vanilla language without any libraries. But it's really difficult and time consuming to do something like this. But let's talk about the CMS. But where are CMS tools standing here? You know, basically a content management system or CMS is a working website that already has everything you need. For example, the logging part, creating and editing posts, communicating with the database, and do all sorts of things. But it's just the core, and you can also add a lot of extensions and modules to increase the ability to the website to do more things with that. For example, you can install a library to sell products in your website. The main advantage of using a CMS is that actually you can create your own website really quick, only with a few clicks. But the problem with that is that actually it's not really easy that much to customize it for yourself. You know, creating a brand new social network using a CMS is much more difficult than creating that with a framework. It is possible and you can do something like that, but you need to know the existing code and project very well and create your own stuff on top of the core. And you need to make sure that all of them work together fine. Okay, now it's time to answer the question, which one I should use, frameworks or CMS? Well, somehow I've already answered that question. With having a rule of thumb, I can say that if you want to create a normal website, a normal blog for your, profile, for your company, if you want to sell some products, if you want to show your products or even some courses, go definitely with a CMS. If you want to create the next big social network or a crazy website like Figma, probably you need to choose a framework to do that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you.